Hi, and welcome back to our AACPS Science Curriculum Hotspot videos. For this video, we'll be covering standard MSLS 1-2, which is on the topic of structures and functions of cells. Let's explore this NGSS performance expectation. For MSLS 1-2, students who demonstrate understanding can develop and use a model to describe the function of a cell as a whole and ways parts of cells contribute to the function. There's a clarification statement for this performance expectation. Emphasis is on the cell functioning as a whole system and the primary role of identified parts of the cell, specifically the nucleus, chloroplasts, mitochondria, cell membrane, and cell wall. There's also an assessment boundary for this standard. Assessment of organelle structure/function relationships is limited to the cell wall and cell membrane. Assessment of the function of the other organelles is limited to their relationship to the whole cell. The assessment does not include the biochemical function of cells or cell parts. So what do students need to know in regard to the standard? Again, it's important to remember that as a teacher, when you are teaching about the organelles of a cell, the only three organelles that you should primarily be teaching are the nucleus, chloroplasts, mitochondria, cell membrane, and cell wall. Here's what students don't need to know. Again, it's important to clarify that the assessment boundary states that assessment of organelle structure/function relationships is limited to the cell wall and cell membrane. So in this standard, when it comes to comparing the structure to the function of organelles, you should only look at the cell membrane and the cell wall. Again, when we talk about the structure of the cell membrane, you want to use terms like fluid-like, mentioning the cell membrane has gaps and protein channels for it to be semi-permeable to allow toxins and other materials in and out of the cell. Whereas to the contradiction aspect of it, the cell wall is rigid, strong, and again, a cell wall has minimal spaces and gaps in order to provide that protection and support for a plant cell. Let's compare the standard to one that vertically aligns to the high school life science standard. So in high school life science, to further elaborate on this middle school science performance expectation, students will be able to construct an explanation based on evidence for how the structure of DNA determines the structure of proteins, which carry out the essential functions of life through systems of specialized cells. So in high school, students are going to get a little more in depth with organelles and their functions. And specifically, when we talk about protein synthesis and DNA structure and function in regard to the nucleus, they're going to get into more detail with that. In our curriculum, we have a phenomena for this standard. You should show an image of this giant sequoia. When you show this image to students, provide them with the driving question, how can plants grow and stand tall if they do not have bones like animals? As students learn more about the differences between plants and animals, including their cells, they will then be able to use evidence from their instruction to answer this driving question. Let's look at some resources in our curriculum that are available to you to help you teach this standard. Our first example is from STEM Scopes, Anatomy of a Cell, Explore 1, Functions of a Cell. In this activity, you are giving students small cutout cards in regard to animal, plants, and cells. In this activity, students identify and compare the functions of animals, plants, and cells based on the provided cutouts. Students should work collaboratively in purposeful groups to complete this activity. Another resource to teach a standard is the interactive model through the website called Cells Alive. In this interactive, students can compare and contrast animal and plant cells. An accompanying worksheet is also provided for this activity within the curriculum. Remember, as students explore this activity, make sure you emphasize that they should only focus on those specified organelles mentioned in the standard: the nucleus, chloroplasts, mitochondria, cell membrane, and for the plant cell, the cell wall. And lastly, for this standard, make sure you check out our middle school science exit ticket, MSLS12, and Performance Matters. Have students complete this exit ticket, in which it will allow them to test their knowledge on this standard. This assessment also will help them prepare for the MISA. When they take this MSET, they'll be asked 3 questions. The first will prepare them for a multiple select option in which they have to identify 2 answer choices, in which one of those 5 organelles are only present in plant cells. They'll also be given a drag and drop item in which they need to identify the functions of those specific 4 parts of a cell, specifically the cell wall, the cell membrane, the mitochondria, and the nucleus. And lastly, in this exit ticket, there's a CER, in which students need to construct a scientific explanation explaining the major structural and functional differences between a plant and animal cell. They'll need to use evidence and reasoning from the tabs to support their explanation. That wraps up this video. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact anybody from the ACPS Science Office. And we look forward to you exploring more of our curriculum hotspot videos.